Thank you for spending a little time here with this story. I hope it gives you a quiet and meaningful break in your day. If you enjoy emotional science fiction like this, please consider subscribing, liking, leaving a comment, and sharing the story with someone who may enjoy it too. Now let us follow a mine safety inspector on Earth. One faint knock from inside a sealed cargo core is about to reveal the lives the galaxy tried to bury. Earth heard the last miner knocking. The first sound Reed Lawson noticed was not loud enough to stop the port. It came through steel, stone, and the low hum of heavy machines at Earthport 12. Most people would have missed it. Most people did miss it. Cargo arms moved above the bay. Heat vents breathed along the floor. Inspectors in gray work coats checked seals, stamps, and hazard tags on a row of dark mineral cores shipped from Cordra, a mining world far beyond Earth space. Reed stood beside the largest core and kept one gloved hand on its rough black shell. He was not there for politics. He was not there for a public case. He was a mine safety inspector from Earth, called in because the shipment had failed a simple weight check. One core was too light by a margin small enough for a shipping clerk to blame on bad calibration, but large enough for Reed to ask for a full stop. He had spent half his life around mines, rescue drills, collapse reports, and families waiting outside locked gates. A number could be wrong by mistake. A mineral shell could crack under heat. A manifest could miss a harmless detail. But dust did not lie. The dust on the core was not from a clean export bay. It was deep-seam dust, the kind that settled after a bad break underground. It clung to the dents in the shell and hid inside the transport clamps. It had the dull gray bite of mine that had been hurt, then sealed in a hurry. A port worker named Luis glanced at the stalled cargo line and rubbed the back of his neck. "Inspector Lawson, if we hold this line much longer, the processors are going to back up all the way to the rail yard." Reed did not move his hand. "Then they can back up." Luis looked at the core, then at the row of waiting machines. The supplier cleared it. Varen Extraction cleared it. Cordra Export Control cleared it. "I know what the forms say." "You think the forms are wrong?" Reed tapped the side of the core once gently. The shell answered with a dull note. Then, beneath that note, something answered back. 3 soft knocks. Reed lifted his hand. The port did not stop. The machines kept humming. Someone laughed near the far scanner. A warning light blinked amber above a different crate. Then the sound came again. 3 knocks. A pause. 2 knocks. A pause long enough for breath. Luis frowned. "Heat stress." "No." "Loose inner shell." "No." Reed pressed his ear near the core. The metal was cold through his hood. He closed his eyes and let the port noise fall away. There was again. 3. Pause. 2. Pause. 1. A weak rhythm. Not a crack. Not settling stone. Not a machine tick. A call. Reed stepped back and raised his voice just enough to cut through the bay. "Shut down the line." Luis hesitative. Reed turned to him. His face was calm, but his eyes had gone hard. "Now." The cargo line stopped one section at a time. Lift arms froze in place. Conveyors slowed, then locked. The sudden quiet made the bay feel larger. A supervisor hurried over with a tablet in her hand. "What is the issue?" Reed pointed to the core. "There may be a living person inside." The supervisor stared at him, then at the sealed mineral shell. "Inside that, yes. That is a compressed cargo core." Then we open it carefully. Within 5 minutes, Reed had the bay under emergency hold. Within 10, he had air filters running, medical standby called, and a cutter team setting a low-heat line around the core. He kept everyone back from the first cut because he did not know what kind of gas might be trapped inside. The first slice released a hiss of stale air. The second opened a narrow seam. Something inside moved. No one spoke. Reed took a rescue light from his belt and aimed it through the cut. At first, he saw only dark stone dust and a folded sheet of cargo insulation. Then the dust shifted, and a hand appeared against the inner wall. It was not human. The fingers were long and gray-blue, blackened at the nails, scraped raw where they had struck metal again and again. They twitched toward the light. The cutter team widened the opening. Reed stepped in before anyone else could. A body slid from the hollow of the core and collapsed against him, light as a bundle of wire and bone. The survivor wore a torn miner's harness. His skin was gray-blue beneath a crust of black dust. His breathing came in dry, broken pulls. Both arms were locked around a small mining device, so tightly that Reed had to tell the medical team not to pry it free. "Do not take it from him," Reed said. "Not yet." The survivor opened one eye. It was pale silver, clouded with pain. He tried to speak, but only dust came out. Reed lowered him onto the stretcher. "You are on Earth," Reed said. "You are safe for this moment. Breathe slowly." The survivor's gaze moved past Reed to the open cargo core. His lips shaped a word. Reed leaned closer. "Stone," the survivor whispered. Reed nodded once. "You came out of stone. I understand." The alien shook his head with tiny effort. His fingers tapped weakly against the device in his arms. 3 knocks. A pause. 2 knocks. His mouth trembled. "Still under," he whispered. "They're still under the stone." Reed looked back at the open core. Then he looked at the manifest displayed on the supervisor's tablet. The shipment had no biological cargo, no passengers, no medical declaration, no emergency tag, only mineral material, refined and sealed. The survivor was not listed as missing cargo. He was not listed at all. The first demand from Varen Extraction arrived before the medical team finished cleaning the dust out of the survivor's airway. It came through official port channels with a polished header, a calm voice, and a legal claim buried under soft words. The corporation identified the survivor as a lost operating unit from a contracted labor system on Cordra. It requested immediate return of the unit, the device in his possession, and all contaminated material from the cargo core. Reed listened to the message once in the medical quarantine room. Then he asked the port supervisor to play it again. The voice repeated that Varen Extraction appreciated Earth's cooperation in resolving a minor shipping irregularity. It warned that the survivor had removed proprietary industrial data. It claimed that any delay in return could harm interstellar supply stability. The survivor lay behind a clear medical shield, breathing through a mask. A name had not been found in any file. His harness carried a stamped work code, half burned away by heat. The port supervisor looked tired. "They are pushing hard." "Of course they are. They are saying he is not a citizen under Cordra labor law." Reed did not look away from the survivor. "What are they calling him?" The supervisor swallowed. "An operating unit." Reed turned off the message. "He is a patient in an Earth medical quarantine room. He is not leaving. Can you make that call?" "I already did." She stared at him. Reed took off one glove and placed it on the table beside the device the survivor had refused to release. "Lock the core. Lock the shipment. No corporate access. No off-site transfer. Mark all samples as part of an active safety investigation. That will bring trade authority attention." "Good. Let them bring lights." The survivor moved behind the shield. His thin hand lifted from the blanket and struck the bed rail. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. Pause. 1. Reed stepped nearer to the shield. "I hear you." The survivor's eyes opened again. He looked at Reed with terror, so old it had become almost calm. "My name," he breathed, "is Terran Voss." Reed repeated it once, clearly. "Terran Voss." The alien's eyes filled, not with relief, but with something harsher, like pain finding its shape again. Reed lowered his voice. "What happened under the stone, Terran?" Terran's fingers tightened around the old mining device. "They counted the ore," he said. "They did not count us." The device in Terran's arms looked too damaged to matter. It was a palm-sized mine recorder, scratched, burned at one edge, and packed with dust. The screen was dead. The outer casing had been cracked and repaired with wire. A Varen logo had once been printed on the back, but someone had scraped half of it away. Mara Quinn, an Earth Systems engineer assigned to port safety, placed it on a clean pad in the evidence room. She was short, sharp-eyed, and careful with broken things. Reed trusted her because she never pretended that a machine was fine just because it still turned on. She studied the recorder under a lamp. This was not built to survive what it survived. "Can you pull anything from it?" Reed asked. "I can try, but if the memory core is fractured, we may only get fragments. Fragments are better than silence." Mara glanced through the glass toward the quarantine room. Terran was asleep now, though his hands still moved now and then as if he were tapping in a dream. What is he? Mireen, Reed said. That is what he told the doctor. I have heard the name. Mining contracts. Low citizen status in several corporate zones. That means low protection. It usually means no one with money argues for them. Reed said nothing. Mara connected the recorder to a safe reader. The first files came through as noise. Static. Broken sensor logs. Heat warnings. Air quality drops. Then the speaker gave a soft click. A knock sounded through the room. Mara froze. Another knock followed. Then another. Then silence. The audio was poor, but the rhythm was clear. 3. Pause. 2. Pause. 1. Reed looked toward the quarantine glass. That was his call. More sounds came through. Different rhythms now. Some fast. Some slow. Some uneven, as if struck by injured hands. Mara lowered the volume. These are not machine faults. No. What are they? Reed watched the waveforms climb and fall across the display. People. Taryn woke after sunset, though no one in the sealed medical wing could see the sky. Earthport 12 ran on work lights and emergency tones. The walls were pale, the air smelled of clean filters, and the bed beneath him was softer than anything in the quarter dorm blocks. That softness made him panic. His body jerked up. The mask pulled against his face. The heart monitor began to climb. Reed was beside the bed before Dr. Ellis Gray could step in. Ellis was the rescue physician assigned to Taryn, a quiet man with steady hands and no patience for corporate language near patients. Taryn, Reed said, you are in the medical wing on Earth. The door is locked from the inside. Varen is not in this room. Taryn tried to breathe too fast. Reed put one hand where Taryn could see it, not touching him yet. Look at the light above the door. Count one breath, then another. Taryn's eyes moved to the light. Good. Again. The panic did not vanish, but it loosened. Taryn sank back into the pillow, shivering. Dr. Ellis Gray checked the mask and murmured, slow breaths. The dust has burned your airway. Do not fight the air. Taryn's gaze shifted to the table. The recorder was not there. His body tensed again. Reed understood at once. Your recorder is safe. Mara is copying the memory. We did not give it to Varen. Taryn stared at him. You know, Varen, I know they want you back. They do not want me back. Taryn's voice was a scrape. They want what I heard. Reed pulled a chair beside the bed and sat down. He did not stand over him. Then help me understand it. Taryn shut his eyes. I cannot say it right. Then do not start with the whole story. Start with where you were. 12 deep. Level 12. Taryn nodded. What were you doing? Listening station. Reed waited. When the power dies, the mind goes blind. The old walls carry sound. We keep rhythm. We count crews. That was your job? Yes. Not just digging. Taryn's eyes opened a little. We all dig. But I listened. I knew who was below by the knock. Reed leaned forward. Each knock was a name. Not name like speech. More like breath. Each crew had one. Some workers had one when they were far from their crew. He raised one trembling hand and tapped the rail. 2 soft knocks. A pause. 4. That was Sella. She fixed lamps. She could find a broken wire in total dark. Another pattern. That was Breck. He was old. He told the young ones which stone could be trusted. Another. That was Miri. She was scared of deep air, but went down because her brother was sick. Taryn stopped. His mouth tightened. The monitor climbed again. Reed spoke quietly. You do not have to name them all now. Taryn shook his head. If I sleep, they fall away. They're not only in you anymore. Reed said, we copy the sounds. Taryn looked at him as if the words were impossible. Reed continued. Mara is cleaning the file. I heard some of them. A long silence passed between them. Taryn's voice dropped almost too low to hear. Then they reached Earth. Reed felt something in his chest go still. Yes, he said. They reached Earth. The first clean analysis came 2 hours later. Mara projected the map in a small operations room, not as a polished corporate diagram, but as a rough model built from broken data. Reed stood beside her. Ellis joined from the medical wing. The port supervisor watched with both hands around a coffee cup she had forgotten to drink. Mara pointed to a cluster of red marks. The recorder's location data is damaged, but the seam signatures placed Taryn below the registered Cordra mining levels. Below, the supervisor asked. Far below. Varen records end at level 9. These signatures are from a deeper seam. Reed folded his arms. A restricted seam. Mara nodded. High pressure, bad gas pockets, unstable roof layers. The kind of place a company avoids unless the ore is worth more than the risk, or unless the workers are cheap enough. No one answered that. Mara changed the display. Lines of audio appeared, each one a different rhythm. Some ended in static. Some faded slowly. Some stopped all at once. Here's the problem, she said. Varen reported the collapse at 1900 Cordra local time. Their official statement says no signals were detected after 1940. She highlighted one cluster. These knocks were recorded at 2310. Another. These at 2350. A third cluster appeared, very faint. And these came after midnight. The supervisor put her cup down. That means people were alive. Yes, Mara said. After Varen said they were not. Reed looked at the last cluster. It was a thin line, almost swallowed by noise. Can you locate that group? Not exactly. But the echo delay suggests a pocket beyond the east intake shaft. Reed knew what that meant. A pocket of air, maybe sealed, maybe with enough space for a small group to survive longer than they should. How long, he asked. Mara did not pretend the answer was easy. If the pocket is real, and if the air has not been poisoned, some may still be alive. But that assumes Varen has not sealed the whole level. The port supervisor checked her tablet. Her face changed. They just announced a safety action. Reed looked up. What kind? Stone seal. They say the lower Cordra levels will be permanently closed to contain toxic release. The room went very quiet. Reed stared at the map. Stone seal was a mining term, dressed up to sound clean. It meant controlled collapse. Foam, charges, pressure locks, and heavy stone movement. It was used when a dead mine had to be made safe forever. If there were survivors in the east intake pocket, stone seal would crush the air out of them. The supervisor's tablet chimed again. Galactic Trade Authority has sent a notice. They are asking Earth to avoid disruption of essential mineral supply until jurisdiction is clarified. Mara let out a humorless breath. People are knocking under a mountain, and they're worried about supply. Reed turned toward the medical wing. Taryn needs to know. Dr. Ellis Gray shook his head. He can barely sit up. He is the only one who knows those rhythms. And if he breaks? Reed looked through the glass at the dim hall beyond. Then we make sure he does not break alone. Taryn did not shout when Reed told him about Stone Seal. He listened from the hospital bed with his hands folded over the blanket. The oxygen mask had been replaced by a soft nasal line. His skin still looked like old ash under blue light. When Reed finished, Taryn stared at the wall. They will seal the stone, he said. Yes. They always said closure was mercy. Reed sat beside him. It can be when no one is alive. Taryn gave a short, dry sound that was not quite laughter. They said we were not alive before the roof fell. Reed waited. Taryn turned his head. You think some remain? I think there is a chance. Chance is a small word. It is the only honest one I have. Taryn looked toward the recorder on the table. Mara had brought it in after sealing the copy. Taryn touched the cracked case with one finger. Play the last group. Reed hesitated. You do not have to do this now. Play it. Mara, standing near the wall, looked at Reed. He nodded once. She played the cleaned audio. At first, there was only static. Then came a faint rhythm. Weak. Slow. Repeated with stubborn care. Taryn's face changed. He lifted one hand and answered the rhythm against the bed rail. For knocks. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. His hand shook. Who are they? Reed asked. East Pocket. Training crew. Young ones and 2 elders. Sella was there. Breck 2, if he could still stand. Mara swallowed. How many? Maybe 12. Maybe more if others crawled there. Reed leaned closer. Can you guide a rescue team to them? Taryn shut his eyes. The room held its breath. No one comes back from 12 deep, he whispered. Reed said nothing. Taryn opened his eyes again. But if no one goes, they will think we stopped knocking. Reed saw the answer before Taryn spoke it. I will go. Dr. Ellis Gray stepped forward. You are not medically cleared for deep mine exposure. Taryn looked at him, then at Reed. I'm not medically cleared to stay alive either. Varen made that clear. Reed did not smile. He did not turn it into a heroic moment. If you come, you follow my pace. You stop when I say stop. You take oxygen when Ellis says you take oxygen. You guide, but you do not carry this alone. Taryn looked down at the recorder. I carried them through stone. No, Reed said. You carry them to Earth. That part is done. The next part is ours. The decision moved faster than the paperwork wanted to move. Earth's Emergency Safety Office took formal custody of Taryn Voss before sunrise. The order was narrow, practical, and hard to fight. Taryn was a witness in an active hazardous materials investigation on Earth soil. He was a patient under Earth care. He was not to be transferred to any corporate or foreign authority while the risk to life remained unresolved. Varen Extraction protested within minutes. Galactic Trade Authority warned that unilateral Earth action could destabilize mineral agreements. Galactic Council requested restraint, a review panel, and confirmation of jurisdiction before any operation on Cordra. Reed reviewed the council. Notice in the launch bay of Harbor Light, Earth's deep rescue ship. Around him, workers loaded drilling packs, air tanks, ground mics, braces, medical heaters, and body recovery bags. They did not look like soldiers preparing for war. They looked like people preparing to enter a place that did not forgive mistakes. That mattered to Reed. He had seen too many leaders use military shapes for moral problems. This was not a warship. It was a rescue ship. It carried lights, tools, and names waiting to be found. Mara came up beside him with a rugged case slung over one shoulder. They are still sending notices. Let them. The council says any entry into Varen property could be judged after the fact. Reed closed the message. People under stone do not survive after the fact. Across the bay, Taryn stood in a fitted rescue suit made for a body Earth medics barely understood. Dr. Ellis Gray adjusted the seals with careful patience. Taryn looked smaller inside the suit, but his eyes were clear. Reed walked to him. Last chance to stay here, Reed said. Taryn looked at Harbor Light. If I stay, I hear them forever. You may hear them there too. I know. You may not find everyone. I know that too. Reed nodded. Then we go to find who we can and name who we cannot. Taryn touched the old recorder clipped to his chest. On Cordra, names were not allowed on deep shift tags. Only work numbers. On Earth records, Reed said, we use names. Taryn studied him for a moment. Why? Reed looked toward the rescue ship's open ramp. Because a number could be erased by someone with access. A name has to be taken from a person. Cordra appeared 6 hours later. It was not a beautiful world from orbit. Its clouds hung low and brown. Long scars crossed its surface where mining roads cut through old plains. The main extraction zone looked like a dark wound with bright corporate lights around it. Varen Control denied Harbor Light permission to land near the collapsed mine. Earth Control overrode on emergency safety grounds. Galactic Council sent a final caution advising no ground entry until neutral observers arrived. Reed did not ignore the message. He studied it once, then saved it to the operation log. Accountability mattered. So did timing. Harbor Light landed in red-gray dust less than 2 miles from the sealed mouth of the East Field mine. When the ramp opened, the air tasted metallic even through filters. A line of Varen security vehicles waited beyond the landing lights. Their uniforms were clean. Their helmets shone. Their boots had no dust on them yet. A woman stepped forward from the front vehicle. She was human-shaped, but not human, with gold skin and black eyes polished like glass. Her voice carried through an external speaker. I am Director Hale Vin of Varen Extraction Site Authority. This area is sealed under corporate hazard protocol. You are ordered to depart. Reed walked down the ramp with his helmet under one arm. Mara and 2 rescue workers followed. Taryn stayed inside for now, out of sight. Reed stopped at the dust line. I am Reed Lawson, Earth Mine Safety Inspector attached to an active life rescue operation. We have evidence of survivors below level 12. There are no survivors. You cannot know that if you seal the levels without entry. We monitored all channels. Reed looked past her at the mine mouth. You monitored channels you controlled. Director Vin's expression did not change. Your witness is a contracted labor asset who stole proprietary records and illegally entered Earth territory. He is a patient under Earth protection. He is Varen property under quarter extraction law. Reed's voice stayed level. Say that again while my recorder is running. For the first time, something flickered in her face. Reed put on his helmet. We are going in. Earth will be held responsible for every injury caused by this interference. We accept responsibility for rescue work we perform. Stone Seal begins in 40 minutes. Mara stiffened beside him. Reed kept his eyes on Director Vin. Delay it. I cannot. The system is automated. Then shut it down. That would risk toxic spread. Reed looked at the mine mouth again. The seal gates were half buried. The rock around them showed stress lines that did not match Varen's public collapse model. No, he said. It would risk evidence. Director Vin stepped closer. You are making accusations you cannot prove. Reed turned toward Harbor Light. Then I will go get proof. The main gate was useless. Varen had welded braces across it, and the outer tunnel behind it had been filled with foam stone. Reed did not waste time trying to make a point there. He walked the perimeter while Mara followed with a ground scanner. Terran, now suited and masked, came down the ramp under Ellis's watch. The first gust of wind hit him, and he nearly folded. Reed caught his arm without grabbing hard. Eyes on me, Reed said. Not the gate. Terran's breath rasped in the helmet channel. This is where they carried or out. Do we need this gate? No. Then we do not look at it. They moved along the slope toward a line of broken vent towers. Varen's security followed at a distance, recording everything. Reed let them. A clean record cut both ways. Mara stopped near the third vent tower. Scanner reads a hollow behind this ridge. Reed crouched. The dust pattern told him more than the scanner did. Fine powder had been pushed out from inside recently, then covered. Not by weather. By a quick machine pass. He brushed the ground and found old grating. Ventilation service crawl. Director Vin's voice came over the open channel. That path is unstable. Reed examined the bolts. It was used after the collapse. Impossible. He held up a strip of cloth caught under the grate. It was gray-blue, stained black with seam dust. Tara made a sound behind him. Reed looked back. Is it Myrene? Tara nodded. We tied cloth where the air still moved. Reed cut the grate. The crawl space beyond was narrow, dark, and angled down into the mine. Reed checked the air first. Bad, but not instantly deadly. He checked the roof with a probe. Unstable in sections, but not collapsed. He marked the entry. Team 1 goes with me. Mara, you track structure. Ellis, you bring Terran only as far as his breathing allows. Terran stepped forward. Reed faced him. You guide. You do not rush. If I say stop, you stop. Terran nodded. Varen's security moved closer. Director Vin said, if you enter, you take legal responsibility for any resulting collapse. Reed clipped his rescue light to his chest. If we do not enter, you keep moral responsibility for everyone still breathing below. He lowered himself into the dark. The mine swallowed sound. Above ground, Cordro was all dirty air and machines. Below, the world narrowed to breath, boots, stone, and the steady click of tools on belts. Reed moved first. He tested every stretch before putting weight on it. Mara followed with the scanner. Terran came behind Ellis, one hand on the wall, as if the stone itself might turn and accuse him of leaving. The crawl space opened into an old service tunnel. The roof sagged in places. Broken cables hung like dead vines. Dust covered the floor so thickly that every step left a deep mark. Reed stopped at the first sign scratched into the wall. It was not a corporate mark. Terran touched it with 2 fingers. Air, he said. This way had air. Reed aimed his light along the tunnel. How old? After collapse. The rescue worker behind Reed whispered. Someone came through here alive. Yes, Reed said. Stay focused. They moved deeper. Soon they found the first empty oxygen shell. Then another. Then a lunch tin, unopened and crushed flat under fallen stone. Then a child's charm tied to a pipe, though no children were supposed to be on deep shifts. Taryn stared at it too long. Reed spoke through the private channel. Name the next marker. Taryn blinked. Do not look at the whole mine. Name the next marker. Taryn breathed in. 2 cuts above pipe. Then low bend. Then ladder break. Good. We go to the 2 cuts. They found them 10 yards later. 2 marks cut into stone above a broken pipe. Mara's voice came tight over the channel. Stone seal is active in the lower pressure lines. I am reading movement behind us. How far? Not near us yet, but it is coming. Reed checked the tunnel ahead. Varen started early. Taryn's hand tightened on the wall. They heard we entered. Reed did not waste anger. Anger used oxygen. We keep moving. The tunnel dropped sharply after the low bend. Reed anchored a rope and sent the light down first. The beam caught old blood on the ladder rungs. Below that, a chamber opened into level 12. Taryn stopped. His breath quickened. Dr. Ellis Gray moved nearer. You're still above safe pulse, Taryn. Slow down. Taryn shook his head. This is where Breck pushed me. Reed looked down into the chamber. Taryn. No response. Reed stepped between him and the ladder, blocking the view. Look at my light. Taryn's eyes found a small white beam on Reed's chest. Tell me what Breck did. Taryn swallowed. He said someone must carry the Nox. He got you out? He locked me into your cradle. I fought him. He hit the release. I heard them after. For hours. Reed let the words sit. Then he said, Breck chose you because you could remember. Taryn's face twisted. I left him. You carried him. Taryn stared at him. Reed pointed to the recorder on Taryn's chest. You carried him farther than he could go. For a moment, the only sound was the mine breathing around them. Then Taryn touched the ladder. Down, he said. They entered level 12 one at a time. The chamber below had been a junction once. Now it looked like a place where a giant hand had crushed the world. Rails bent into the floor. A transport cart lay on its side. The far wall had collapsed into a slope of broken stone, and beyond it the east intake shaft was hidden in darkness. Mara set 3 braces before letting the team cross. Reed examined the collapse pattern. His jaw tightened. This was not only roof failure. Mara looked up from the scanner. You see it too? The blast marks are inside the support line. Someone set charges after the first break. To seal it. To seal something. Tara heard them. Varen said the fire spread. There was no fire here, Reed said. Mara scanned the wall. Gas release maybe. But the charge pattern cut off the intake. Reed looked toward the blocked east shaft. They closed the path while people were on the other side. A faint vibration moved through the floor. Mara checked her reader. Stone seal pressure wave. We have maybe 20 minutes before this level starts shifting hard. Reed turned to the team. Ground mics. 2 rescue workers placed listening pads against the stone. Mara filtered the signal. Static filled the channel. Then Stone groaned. Then, silence. Taryn stood very still. Reed watched him, not the device. Taryn lifted one hand and struck the wall. For Nox. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. The sound traveled into Stone and vanished. Reed wanted to tell him not to hope too much. He did not. They waited. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then something answered. It was so faint that Reed thought at first it might be his own pulse in the helmet. Then it came again. 4. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. Taryn pressed both hands to the wall. Sella, he breathed. The channel went silent. Even Mara did not speak. The answer came again, weaker this time. Same rhythm. Same stubborn shape. Reed looked at the blocked shaft, then at Mara's scanner. Can we reach them? Mara's face was pale behind her visor. Not through the main fall. Too much weight. Other path. She turned the scan. There may be a maintenance cut behind that wall, but opening it will shift the chamber. How bad? Bad enough that we might not get back this way. Reed studied the wall. He could see it now. A seam hidden under dust. A forgotten access cut, sealed but not fully packed. Behind them, the floor shuddered again. Dr. Ellis Gray said, Stone seal is closing the rear tunnel. One of the rescue workers looked at Reed. Inspector? Reed did not answer right away. He walked to the wall, placed his gloved palm against it, and felt the vibration. Stone, under pressure, spoke in ways no machine fully caught. Too much movement, and it would shear. Too little speed, and the pocket would be crushed before they reached it. He turned to Taryn. How far from this wall to the east pocket? Taryn closed his eyes. His fingers moved, counting memory against his palm. Short crawl, low roof, then a drop, then old pump room. How many inside? I do not know. Do you know the way once we open it? Taryn opened his eyes. Yes. Mara's scanner chimed a warning. Reed looked at the team. We open the maintenance cut. Small charge, low force. Braces on both sides. One line back to the junction. One line forward once we breach. Anyone who wants out goes now. No one moved. Dr. Ellis Gray said, if we are cut off, then harbor light drills from above, and we stay alive long enough to be annoying. A rescue worker gave one short laugh, more fear than humor. Reed's voice stayed steady. We came for the knock. It answered. Now we answer back. Taryn looked at him then, and something changed in his face. Not fear leaving. Fear stayed, but it no longer stood alone. They set the charge. The blast was small. The mine made it feel huge. Dust slammed the chamber. Rock cracked overhead. Reed held the brace line with both hands while Mara shouted pressure readings through the channel. For a moment, the whole level seemed to decide whether it would kill them. Then the dust cleared enough to show a dark opening in the wall. Air moved through it. Bad air, but moving. Reed went first. The maintenance cut was worse than Taryn remembered. The roof forced them to crawl. Twice Reed had to stop and clear stone by hand. Once the tunnel pinched so low that his air tank scraped the ceiling and sent a rain of grit down his back. Behind him, Taryn crawled with one arm shaking. Ella stayed near enough to catch him if his body failed. Halfway through, the rear chamber groaned. Mara's voice came over the channel. We just lost part of the junction. Can we still return? Not the same way. Reed kept moving. Then we do not waste the forward path. The crawl dropped into the old pump room. Reed landed in ankle-deep sludge and caught Taryn as he came down after him. The pump room was cracked but open. Beyond it, a steel door had buckled under pressure, leaving a narrow gap at the bottom. From the other side came a sound. Not a machine. A hand striking metal. 4. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. Taryn fell to his knees. Sella, he said. Reed crouched at the gap. This is Earth Rescue. We hear you. Move back from the door if you can. For a moment, nothing. Then a voice came through the door, thin and dry. Taryn. Taryn put both hands against the metal. I carried Knox, he said. I brought them. A sob sounded from the other side. Then another voice. Then coughing. Reed turned to the team. Cut the lower hinge. Slow. Keep water ready for dust. Mara grabbed his sleeve. Reed, the upper frame is carrying weight. I know. If it drops, the door becomes a blade. Then we brace the frame before the cut. We have one brace left. Reed looked at the door. Behind it, someone coughed again. A small voice asked a question in a language Reed did not know. Taryn answered with a knock. Reed took the final brace from the rescue pack. We use it here. The cut took 6 minutes. 6 minutes in a mine under collapse feels like an argument with death where death has more patience. The frame shifted twice. Reed held the brace while another worker cut. Mara called measurements. Ellis checked Taryn's oxygen and told him to breathe. Taryn kept tapping against the door, not in panic but in answer. When the lower hinge gave, the door sagged just enough. Reed and the rescue worker pulled. A gap opened. The first survivor inside was an old Marine with one eye swollen shut and both arms around a younger miner. Behind them were more bodies. Some moved. Some did not. All of them had the same dust on their skin. Reed climbed through. My name is Reed Lawson, he said. We are Earth Rescue. We're taking you out. The old Marine stared at his helmet light. Earth, she whispered, as if the word was too strange to trust. Yes. She looked past him and saw Taryn. For a moment, all the strength left her. Taryn caught her before she fell. Sella, he said. The old Marine touched his face with a trembling hand. You answered. Taryn shook his head and looked at Reed. They answered first. The rescue did not become easy after that. Nothing in a mine ever became easy just because hope arrived. There were 9 survivors in the pocket. 3 could walk with help. 4 had to be carried. 2 were barely breathing. Several bodies lay wrapped in torn thermal sheets along the wall. Sella, the lamp fixer, had kept the living grouped near a cracked water pipe that dripped once every few minutes. Breck was there too, but he had died before Earth arrived. He sat with his back against the stone, one hand still near a wall covered in marks. Taryn knelt beside him. Reed gave him a few seconds, no more than the mine allowed. Then he said softly, "We have to move." Taryn nodded, but he touched Breck's hand first. "I carried them," he whispered. "I came back." Reed looked at the marks on the wall. They were not random scratches. They were names, or as near as the miners could come to names without speech. Rhythms cut into stone. "Mara," he said, "record every mark." Already doing it. The rear path was gone by the time they returned to the pump room. Mara's map showed the junction collapsed. Stone Seal had sealed their way back and was pushing pressure toward the pump chamber. Harbor Light was drilling from above, but the drill had to avoid gas pockets and unstable rock. It would take time. Time was what the pocket survivors did not have. Reed found the old pump shaft on the far side of the room. It rose at a steep angle and had once carried waste slurry toward a surface processing pit. Varen had marked it as filled. It was not filled. It was blocked in 2 places, narrow, filthy, and dangerous, but it moved upward. Mara scanned it and swore under her breath. Reed looked at her. "Say it plain. It may hold long enough for the lightest survivors. It will not hold if we move everyone at once. Then we move in groups. If it fails between groups, then we make sure the first group carries the proof." Taryn heard him. "No." Reed turned. Taryn stood with Sella leaning on him. His face was gray with exhaustion. "No one is proof first. People first." Reed held his gaze. "You are right. The correction mattered." Reed let it stand. "People first. The recorder copy goes with the first medic because if we lose signal, the world still hears what happened. But no one hears cargo. No one is evidence before they are alive." Taryn looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. They began the climb. Reed sent the 2 weakest survivors first with Dr. Ellis Gray and 1 rescue worker. Sella refused to go before a younger miner until Taryn spoke to her in Marine, a low stream of words Reed could not understand. Whatever he said made her shut her eyes, press her forehead to his, and let Ellis guide her into the shaft. The pump shaft fought them for every yard. Twice Reed had to stop falling debris with his own back while Mara set temporary plates. Once a survivor panicked in the narrowest stretch, and Taryn crawled near enough to tap the survivor's rhythm on the pipe until the panic broke. That was when Reed saw the full shape of him. Taryn was not only the man who had escaped. He was the man who knew how to call people back from a dark. The first group reached the surface through a broken waste hatch a quarter-mile from the mine mouth. Harbor Light crews pulled them out into Cordra's dirty air. Cameras from Varen security caught the moment before Varen could stop them. So did Earth recorders. So did 3 independent observers who had arrived too late to prevent entry, but just in time to see survivors carried out of mine Varen had declared dead. The second group came out 16 minutes later. Reed was in the last group with Taryn and Mara when the shaft began to fail. The pipe wall cracked behind them. Dust blasted upward. The whole passage shook. "Move," Reed said. Taryn was ahead of him, dragging a pack with the stone mark recordings. Mara pushed from behind. Reed braced the cracked section with his shoulder and one arm while Taryn crawled through the last tight bend. A rock struck Reed's helmet hard enough to white out his vision. For a second, he heard nothing. Then came knocking. Not from below. From ahead. 3 knocks. Pause. 2. Pause. 1. Taryn was calling him. Reed blinked the dark away and pulled himself forward. Another rock fell. The shaft folded behind his boots. He shoved the pack through the bend, then dragged himself after it with Mara's hand locked around his harness. They burst into surface light covered in mud, dust, and blood. Taryn turned back and grabbed Reed's arm with both hands, as if Reed might still be taken by the mine. Reed lay on the ground, breathing hard. Above him, Cordra's sky was the color of old metal. Dr. Ellis Gray leaned over him. "You are still alive." Reed coughed. That was the plan. It was a poor plan. It worked. Ellis looked toward the survivors being loaded on a Harbor Light stretchers. It worked enough. The mine mouth collapsed fully 11 minutes later. Stone Seal finished what Varen had started, but it did not finish it in silence. By then, Earth had broadcast the rescue record to every authority that had warned them to wait. The files showed survivors being pulled from the sealed level. They showed the time stamps of Anox. They showed Stone Seal activating while an active rescue team was underground. They showed the wall marks, the unregistered deep seam, the blast pattern inside the support line, and the list of labor numbers Varen had used instead of names. Galactic Trade Authority issued a careful statement. Galactic Council called an emergency review. Varen Extraction denied criminal intent for 19 minutes. Then Mara released the cleaned audio of the final pocket. It was not dramatic by itself, just Nox. Weak, dry, spaced by breath and pain. But Mara paired each rhythm with Terran's memory, the marks from the wall, and the survivors who confirmed them. Sela, Breck, Miri, Davin, Halaf, Nasa, Oren, Seba. Not all the names were Mirine. Some belonged to other poor workers brought to Cordra on contracts no one had explained to them in a language they fully understood. Some had families and systems that had been told their loved ones had abandoned work. Some had no one left to receive the news. So Earth entered their names into the public rescue record anyway. Varen Extraction's Cordra license was suspended within 48 hours. Director Hale Venn was removed from site authority pending investigation. Stone Seal controls across 5 corporate mines were frozen by emergency order. Galactic Council did not thank Earth. It did not need to. Its first official line said that all laborers in sealed extraction zones must be treated as persons for rescue purposes. Reed studied that line in the medical bay of Harbor Light and felt no victory in it. Terran sat across the bay with Sela and the other survivors. His breathing had worsened after the climb, but Ellis had him stable. He held the recorder in his lap. The old device had finally died during the ascent. Its memory had been saved, but the object itself was quiet. Reed walked over and sat beside him. They suspended Varen, Reed said. Terran looked toward the bay door, where Cordra's dust still blew across the landing lights. Suspended is not buried. No. Will they be punished? Some. Maybe not enough. Terran accepted that with the tiredness of someone who had never expected enough. Reed leaned forward, elbows on knees. But the names are out. That part cannot be sealed again. Terran looked down at the dead recorder. I did not know all of them. No one asked you to know all of them. I was the listener. You were one listener. Not the whole world. Terran's throat worked. Breck said someone must carry the Nox. You did. Now, what do I carry? Reed looked through the bay window at the mine. Less. The memorial took place at the mouth of the sealed mine because Terran asked for it there. Earth did not make it grand. No Vanus. No victory stage. No speeches that tried to polish grief into pride. Harbor Light's crew set a line of rescue lamps along the dust, each lamp facing the stone. Mara placed a portable speaker on a crate. Dr. Ellis Gray stood with the survivors, ready in case any of them needed to leave. Reed wore his work suit, still stained in places the cleaners had not reached. He held a tablet with the confirmed names and the unconfirmed rhythms. Beside him stood Terran Voss, weak but upright. Representatives from Galactic Council watched from a distance. Trade officials watched too. Varen security was gone. For once, no corporate voice filled the air. Terran stepped toward the first lamp. His hand rose. He knocked on the metal frame. 2. Pause. 4. Reed spoke the name. Seloven, Lamp Tekenisin, recovered alive. Sela, standing behind them, bowed her head. Terran moved to the second lamp. 1. Pause. 1. Pause. 3. Reed spoke the name. Breck Soul, senior tunnel guide, recovered from level 12. Terran's hand paused on the lamp. His fingers trembled. Reed waited. No one hurried him. Terran knocked again. 3. Pause. 3. Miri Cal, apprentice miner, recovered from the east pocket. A young survivor began to cry without sound. One by one, the Nox moved down the line. Some names were confirmed. Some were still attached to remains being identified. Some were listed as unknown, but not erased. Earth recorded each one as a person, not a lost category. When they reached the last lamp, Taryn did not knock right away. It represented the rhythms they had heard but not yet named. The voices too damaged by static. The hands too weak to leave marks. The people who had reached Earth only as sound. Taryn looked at Reed. I cannot name this one. Reed said, then we do not pretend we can. What do we say? Reed looked at the sealed mine, then at the row of lamps. We say someone was there. Taryn nodded. He knocked once. A single sound traveled across the dust and struck the closed stone. Reed spoke the final line into the record. Unknown miner, Eastfield, Cordra. Heard after collapse. Not forgotten. The air moved over the lamps. For a moment, Reed thought the mine had answered. It was only loose stone shifting under heat. He knew that. He was too experienced to mistake it. But Taryn lifted his head, and Sella did too. So did the other survivors. Around them, earthworkers, council observers, and even the trade officials stood very still. No one spoke. The first sound had come from inside a cargo core on Earth, hidden in a shipment that called a living man mineral material. It had been almost too soft to hear. Now the same kind of sound stood at the center of a record no corporation could seal. Reed placed his rescue light at the base of the final lamp. Taryn looked at him. You gave them Earth light. Reed shook his head. No, you brought them to us. Taryn held the dead recorder against his chest. I thought Earth was far. It is. Then why did you hear? Reed looked at the sealed mine, the lamps, the survivors, and the officials who had been forced to stand in the dust with the people they had once called a labor issue. Because distance was never the problem, he said. Someone had to listen. Taryn turned back to the stone. He raised his hand one last time, but this time he did not knock for help. He knocked an answer. 3. Pause. 2. Pause. 1. The rhythm crossed the silent mine mouth, passed over the rescue lamps, and faded into the moving air. No one under the stone could answer now. But the galaxy had heard it, and for the first time, it could not say it had heard nothing. When the last rescue light went out over Cordra, the stone did not feel silent anymore. It held names now, not numbers, not lost labor, not forgotten cargo. Names. And somewhere in that quiet, 1 week knock inside a cargo core had become something much larger. It had become proof that even in a galaxy built on contracts, borders, and cold excuses, one human being could still stop, listen, and say, no, someone is still down there. That is what Earth gave them. Not pity, not a speech, a hand in the dark, a light under the stone, a promise that no life should be erased just because saving it was inconvenient. And maybe that is what humanity means at its best. Not being the strongest voice in the galaxy, but being the one voice willing to answer when everyone else has already turned away. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If it stayed with you, even for a moment, please leave a like, share it with someone who enjoys meaningful science fiction, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about humanity, courage, and the lives the galaxy tried to forget. Your support helps this channel keep growing, and it helps more listeners find these stories. Until the next journey, take care of yourself, and remember this. Sometimes the smallest sound in the dark is not an ending. Sometimes it is the first sign that someone still believes you are worth saving.